Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Built with Metal podcast. I am Melanie Kowal, executive publisher of Metal Construction News and Metal Architecture. I am very excited to introduce today's guest, Christen Funk, president of Butler Manufacturing and chair of the Metal Building Manufacturers Association. Christen brings more than 2 decades of experience leading global businesses and driving growth. She's managed massive P&Ls, led teams of hundreds, and delivered strategies that transformed markets. Christen is passionate about building strong teams and shaping the future of the industry. Thank you for being on our show today, Christen. It's great to see you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here with you.
Great. So before we get into the meat of our podcast and the bigger topics shaping the industry, let's talk a little bit about you and your background. Can you tell us a little bit about how you first got started in construction and sort of specifically what drew you to the metal side of the business?
Yeah, you know, I have a business background, generally speaking, but honestly, I've always been interested in construction. I grew up in a household where, my dad was an engineer and was on more of the infrastructure side of construction, but still, I think, he always demonstrated how he performed his job and kind of struck that chord of interest with me, at a very young age. Um, Professionally, I would say I joined construction as an industry probably in 2009 when I first started with Rainbird. Irrigation products are really on the tail end of construction when it comes to new buildings and properties, but still, use a similar or a common process of, starting with an architect through to, maybe a general contractor and then somebody in the field ultimately who's executing on a project for a client. So just a lot of similarities, from my career historically that with Rainbird. Moving into metal construction and specifically kind of metal buildings, I was drawn to that as really I learned about the people across this industry and the impact that they're having on the built environment, on their communities, and just the legacy of the generational work that is done in metal construction. I was really awed by that and have a lot of respect for the people that have been here before me. I felt like I could make an impact and learn a lot and have some fun along the way. So I've been, in the industry now 5 years with Butler and continue to just enjoy every moment and every opportunity to better service this market.
And you are the first female president at Butler, correct?
That's correct.
Which is amazing. So congratulations on that. Breaking down that glass ceiling a little bit. I think that's amazing. Now,
Yeah, thank
talking
you.
about Butler, Butler Manufacturing has a long history in innovation. How would you describe their approach to staying ahead in an industry that, as we know, is constantly evolving and shifting?
Yeah. It's a great question because we do have a very long history of innovation and have, paved that path in many different ways, historically speaking, and many of them to do with product, really specifically. I think, the secret to continuing to evolve your business and to focus on innovation starts with the customer. It starts with understanding, what is the market in front of us? What are the challenges or the obstacles that are being faced? What is the ask? And then how do we develop solutions that provide what people are looking for, that make, our job sites safer and easier and faster while still delivering a really high quality end solution for the client. It could mean from an innovation perspective that it's, a new software or a system. It could be a new product, but it could be, innovation in the processes we use in our communication tools. There really is so many ways to define innovation. From the Butler perspective, our approach is to always be diligent in our research, to never, be complacent with what we've done in the past, but to be hungry and excited, looking to the future of really what we want to become and how we want to better service that market.
And you mentioned software, and I know that in recent conversations that I've had with you, I know technology is an important topic for you. And it's something that seems to be changing, I think, faster than ever before with AI, automation, digital design tools. How is Butler then integrating or experimenting with some of those technologies?
Yeah, we're really doing a whole bunch of different things across the board, depending on the functional department that you're talking about. So, when I think about technology, it could be software. We just recently released Omni Design, which is a new pricing software, exclusive to Butler, but that services the market in new ways. That help to streamline our processes, from before. When we think about technology more broadly, we think about safety. How does it impact, how our people perform, whether it's in the field or in a manufacturing environment? There's lots of ways that they can use it to assist the employee. And I think we're experimenting with many of those. My strategy is to think, start small, be ready to, fail fast if something's not working, and then look for ways to modify or, adapt your strategy to really overcome the challenges you face. So, I think it can be applied to a manufacturing environment, to construction and labor in the field, obviously to our software systems, whether that's project management or pricing, all the way through the whole process and industry. And I regularly hear from others that they too, are looking for ways to better lean in technologies that work for them. Sometimes I hear people say, AI is going to overtake the world, or really is going to, take over processes and jobs and functions. That may be true in the future, but I don't think that's where we are today. I don't think it's a reason really to be scared of what's around the corner.
So, based on that, then, do you think there are any sort of specific opportunities for AI or technology to make a difference in the future of the metal construction process?
I do. Yeah. When we look at just the duration of a project from when we first start talking to a customer to when it ultimately ends up completed and finished in the field, I think we have to think first about how that process starts. So, when someone's thinking about a building and they involve lots of different players, there's a space for technology to present options, to show a more integrated design to the client, to walk them through it. And those are all ways that I think, on the front end, we could better use AI or use technology to do that. As we get into the process of managing a project, BIM modeling has come a long way, clash detection, just how all the trades on a project would work together, including the manufacturer, right, is ripe for innovation and technology. But it always starts with finding, what are the repetitive tasks? Where is it that we're doing the same thing over and over, where technology really can make a huge difference and have an impact?
So that kind of leads me into my next question a little bit, Kristen, which was about the labor shortage, which is something I know you and I have also discussed a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the labor shortage, and maybe you can share your thoughts on how technology specifically is encouraging younger people to enter this marketplace and maybe solve some of those and fix some of those gaps.
Yeah, I think the question around the next generation, or how we introduce young people and get them engaged in our industry, is an important one. There's definitely, a gap in the market as we see, more and more I'll say baby boomers retire and look for ways to pass on their knowledge. The truth of our business is many folks across the industry are, second generation, third generation, fourth generation, which is, a great thing. But we need to pass that knowledge down. And a big part of that is engaging young people and helping them to build and have the skills that are necessary to have a successful career in metal construction. I think there's lots of different ways that technology can help with that. First, it's probably reaching those people, going to whether it's a high school or a vocational school, even a university, and making sure that our industry has its name out among the people that we're engaging them and really telling our story. I think we need to do much more of that. And I do see that across the industry. Then it's making sure we follow up with those people. And of course, this is job boards, but it's reaching out on social media. It's having podcasts like this one, so people can hear the work that's being done, and then providing, real job opportunities or apprenticeships where, they can not only hear about the opportunity, but really do it firsthand. Technology also helps in that process as we onboard people. It allows people to have, for example, short video clips of exactly how something is done or made. It allows for quick, instant feedback on their learning and development, and provides lots of ways that we can communicate and track that development, more effectively than ever.
So it sounds like there's a lot of strategies for attracting sort of that next generation into the construction business, into the metal construction business. Technology is one of those ways. It sounds like that Butler is doing as well. Um, can you share any examples of this, either at Butler or with some of your partners, where technology or mentorship programs are helping sort of bridge that skills gap?
Yeah, from the Butler side, we have several internships that we do every year, and technology helps us to reach those people, to attract them, engage them, and then have programs that are meaningful for them to learn from. When I think about other partners across the business, I know there are contractors and builders, GCs out there who have, for example, construction days where they're bringing people in. You might get to see how equipment works, or learn what is the process of metal construction. How do we do it differently from other types or other materials? So there's lots of programs like that. I think, once you're in a company or in a business, then how we provide that exposure is also critical. So, some folks will have rotational programs where you might stop at one function for 3 months or 6 months and then keep moving to really learn and build those skills. Obviously, that also helps people to identify, where within the industry is really the right fit for their passion and interest. And those programs are offered for everything from, field roles and superintendents that are out constructing the projects, to positions in the office, project management, estimating, engineering. So it's an exciting time, I think, really for us to lean into that side of our industry, and to leverage the technology available.
And there's so many different facets and aspects and job roles available in the construction industry, like you said. It sounds like there's something almost for everyone that I think a lot of the young generation might not even be aware of. And so it sounds like you guys are doing a great job sort of getting that messaging out there and showing what an attractive industry it can be. So let's just shift gears for a minute and let's talk about permits and codes, another topic I know that's been very important this past year. One issue that we are hearing more about is the complexity of permitting and new code adoption across local jurisdictions. So, how are these changes affecting projects, and what do you think companies can do to navigate some of those changes more effectively?
More and more, unfortunately, the complexity in these processes is slowing things down, and it's not the impact that I think anybody wants to have occur. And so there's lots of ways you can, I think, strategize or really provide a path to try to prevent those slowdowns if possible. And we get calls all the time, saying a particular project site is not going to be ready because it is delayed due to permitting. Some of the things you can do is really to plan and prepare, with as much advance notice as you can provide, and expect those delays to happen. Expect there to be a dialogue and engagement with questions and answers back and forth. I think also having a really clear perspective on what the project is and what the plan for it will be is critical to making sure that you streamline that process. It is a common challenge really across the business, and one that we need to face together.
So, do you see opportunities, or maybe you can share where you think there are opportunities for the industry to sort of better educate or even collaborate with code officials to help streamline that process?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with people collaborating on understanding what is the code? How do we interpret it? How do we understand it? How do we navigate it? And so, one of the biggest opportunities is to collaborate and just communicate around understanding and education of what's really in front of people and know what the specific um, you know, code is for your jurisdiction and how they will respond to different proposals and requests. I think communication is at the foundation of that, but being able to, build relationships and make sure you're connecting, have a clear plan, follow up. I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's engaging those officials in the process, and engaging them early so that everyone's on the same page. Eliminating confusion is a huge way to just speed it all up.
And let's spend some time today talking a little bit about one of the hottest topics of 2025, anyway, which is supply chain and tariffs. I feel like this topic is constantly moving and evolving. Tariffs and supply chain diversification have been major points in 2025. How is Butler approaching these challenges, and what lessons do you think has the industry learned about sourcing supply flexibility over the past few years?
I agree. Supply chain and tariffs have been one of the big conversation topics this year. I think the best way to navigate, and it is a changing world, is to really understand how it works, and where you're going to be affected. So, predict where the risks might be, and then create a plan to help mitigate those and communicate those out to the market. When I think about supply chain generally, a lot of us saw difficulties in our supply chains, over the past year, specifically with COVID, and how that drew and changed demand really across the industry. So in some cases, right, having, a very robust diverse supply chain has been a help for many businesses, and that includes Butler. Being well positioned to not be as greatly impacted. Now, as you say, it's sometimes a moving target. Tariffs are still changing even today as we speak, and the implications, vary by location and by company. For example, in Canada, we saw pretty significant retaliatory tariffs for most of 2025. Those were then lifted for, complete prefabricated buildings come September 1st. And now it sounds like tariffs will be reinstated to some degree, having an impact on that construction market. It changes the economics of supply and demand, and we all have to realize, appreciate that, and then prepare for what it means tomorrow. I do think one of the other impacts of supply chains and tariffs have been, a lot of businesses trying to understand what the future holds. How is it going to impact manufacturing, for example, in the broader US economy going forward? And so there's still a lot of uncertainty and a lot yet to be seen with really what happens in the long run.
Yeah, and that seems to be the catch-all word for 2025. I think is uncertainty, right? And I think we can all sort of say that everyone's feeling that impact of uncertainty and planning ahead for 2026 for potentially more uncertainty, but maybe staying ahead of it, right? Which is, I think, where
Yes.
where a lot of manufacturers are going. Okay, so moving into our last question, that makes me think about 2026. As we look toward 2026, what gives you the most optimism about where the metal construction industry is headed?
Great question. When I think about the industry overall and kind of what's ahead for us, what's in the future, I think about all the people who now are expressing interest in metal construction and who are realizing the benefits of the service and the products that we can provide. It's everybody from an architect or developer, a general contractor, through to an erector or an end user, the owner of that building or that project, understands that not only, in metal construction can we provide a quality product, but we can do it with a high level of service and flexibility. And then we can do it with a lot of speed. Speed is really one of the keys to success in construction, and we're able to offer it as a differentiator in many cases. So, my optimism really is a reflection of the excitement that I see across the industry from a number of different, trades and professions. And it's an exciting time to be a part of this industry.
Good things are coming in 2026 and beyond. Thank you so much, Kristen, today for being on our show and sharing your expertise and experience and insights. Now, if someone wants to learn a little bit more about Butler Manufacturing, what is the best way they can get in touch?
Well, they can visit our website, of course, butlermfg.com, but they can reach out to, any Butler employee through social media, email or phone, and we're happy to help them navigate that path and talk about Butler. I just want to say thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today.
This has been the Built with Metal podcast, available on metalconstructionnews.com or where you get your favorite podcasts.